Hi, Ann Cornick from Paint and Porcelain. I'm here to teach beginners how to get started in China painting and also to recruit experienced painters to paint along with me. And today we're going to be working on our little robin. We did the baby robin first fire last time, and we're going to do the second fire this time. This is how my first fire of my baby robin turned out. You can see we kind of lost the beak a little bit. There's some areas too down in this area here where I realized some of the background, I don't know what happened. I just sort of missed the background. I also missed putting some leaves all the way up to the flowers, or it fired out, one or the other. So on this fire, we're going to do the macro. Now, what I mean by that is you could finish the whole bird on this fire, and I'll show you what the final product is going to look like. I did finish my other plate this week, so you can see how it's going to turn out. And this is the final product of the baby bird. The trying to do everything on the second fire is difficult if you're a beginner. Now, I probably can manage it on my own, but I did try it, and what I found was if I got my liner a little too oily and tried to put in detail after I had already put some paint on the bird, it just sort of mushed into the background. And you don't want to be frustrated, and you don't want to do that. So we're going to do things on this coat to increase the size of the branches, add some more shadow, get some more depth on the bird. We're not going to go for the fine detail. We're going to leave all the fine details to the next time. So that's why it's taking us 3 fires on this. But I think if you're a beginner, you need that amount of time in order to understand how everything layers, and it'll make a big difference in the long run for you. So like I said, you can try them both together, and if you don't like it, if it doesn't work, you can wipe it off. But I would recommend, if you're a beginner, to do a second and a third fire on this. Okay, we haven't changed the palette very much. And remember, if you don't have these colors, it's not really the end of the world. You need a light and a dark blue. I happen to have, you can use baby blue or cool shadow or Copenhagen. You need an ivory, and you should have that on a basic palette. You also need a black and a white down here on the bottom, so you should have that on a basic palette. You need a light and a dark brown. If you have only a rich brown, you can mix a little yellow or something in it, and it'll make it a little lighter. I have a warm brown gray. You don't really need that, so it's up to you. You need a light and a medium green. I have chartreuse and moss. I also have, this is a weird one, it's called Shining, and I don't even think they make it, but I found it in one of the estate sale paints I had, and so I wanted to try it. But it's like an emerald green or a grass green, so if you have those, you can use them, but if you don't, just use your moss. I have Albert yellow. This is actually Trenton ivory, but look how close it is to Albert. I have old gold green, and you can also use like a silver gray. So you could take your black and white and mix it and get a silver gray and use that instead of the old gold green. And then I have a yellow brown that I added this time just to give me like a third dimension for the browns. I have an apricot, and I also have a burnt orange. Burnt orange, if you don't have it, you can use yellow red. Apricot, if you don't have it, you can add a little white to the yellow red, and it'll be a peachier color for you. So there are a lot of ways around the colors if you don't have them. But I would recommend that, if possible, if you have a teacher that you can buy paints from, terrific. Buy 1 or 2 every month and add to your palette, because the more paints you have, the more you'll understand them, and I think the more life you'll get in your palette. So. Okay, I'm going to tilt you down, and we're going to get started on this. So I sanded my piece. For those of you that are new, I don't know if we haven't talked about this too much, but this is a sanding block. It has the sand on the back. You can buy these from Dallas, China. And you need to sand, because otherwise there's always a little bit of grit. You can feel it when you run your hand over the piece after it comes out of the kiln. And if you sand it, I think it'll help a lot, because you'll find that it makes it real nice and smooth, and also makes it easier to work on. So I'm going to start out and by using a little bit of the cool shadow or baby blue, whichever color you have. And because I'm going to eventually be working on these flowers, I want to have a little bit of color behind them, not a lot. Oops, I don't have enough oil on there, I don't think. And so I'm going to be adding, now I don't have enough paint. I'm going to be adding a little bit of color back here. And you know, you may find that your brush isn't working for you, and that's me today. Something about that number 10, it just doesn't like me today. So I'm going to work on my, I've got a little, I think this is a 1/2 inch. Yeah, that's a little better. Gives me a little more color right off the bat. If you're finding that you're not getting the color you want from a brush, sometimes switching brushes will help you. Okay, and I'm just putting a little bit of background. I'm really trying to fade it into the background. Right here, I'm going to put a little bit of color. But I don't want to get too far into the background because I really did the background on the final coat. And that way I don't think I overdid it. I wanted to keep the focus on the bird. And then I need to put a little blue over in here. And I realized there's nothing right there. But I think I'm going to make that the leaf instead of the blue. This is the last coat usually where you can make major corrections if there's things that you missed. So it's always a good idea to paint a little and really look at what you're doing, because some of these things you may find that you don't really have everything there that you need, background or leaves or something. You may find that your leaves or your stems don't attach, that you miss some veins. This is a good time to put all that in, okay? So I'm just going around the flower a little bit, and then I'm going to pull the background towards the flower, wiping off my brush as I go, because I really don't want that background to just stop. I want it to just fade. But I just wanted some color up near my flowers so that I had something to work with there. Okay. And you can even tap like I do just to kind of blend the edges of that. I just don't want it to get out of hand. Alrighty, so that's what I've done so far. Nothing real dramatic. Oh, you know what? I'm looking here, and I don't know if you can tell, but right there, it looks like I missed this whole section here with the blue before. So I'm going to put a little more blue in there, right there. See what a difference that makes? So there are a lot of places. I think I'm also going to put a little blue in right here. Looks like I missed a little. I'm just going to put a little blue in right there. Oops, let me get the blue. Because you want to make sure as you study this piece on your second fire that you've got the color everywhere you want it. Okay? Wipe off your brush and then go and really mash the edges of that color into the background, because you really don't want it to be like a line. And you can correct this on the next fire, but if you're not careful, you'll have a line, so it's important to try to get it in there pretty well. Okay, now we're going to go to our baby bird. Everybody likes the little baby bird. Pull my brushes closer. I'm using my number 4 rounded. That's, of course, my favorite brush, especially for birds. So now I'm taking ivory, a full load right now, and I'm just adding a little bit of ivory to give me a little more color. It is dragging like crazy today. I don't know what the deal is. There we go. And I'm trying to get a little bit of color up there. And then I'm also going to put a little more ivory on the wings. That will also help. So we're going to put a little more ivory up in here. And you can use the full brush or you can use the side of your brush. You're just adding in a little more color. And then the other place that we have ivory is around the eye. And so I am going to put a little bit up in there. Because remember, this is the macro version. We're trying to get more of the color in on this version. And then next time we will take and put in all the little details. So we want him to really show up. And so I'm adding a little more color. You notice I'm pulling from the center away from the eye to put in the old ivory. I'm using the side of my brush. I have a little more control with the side of my brush. If you can see that, yeah. Trying to make sure you can see everything I'm doing. There we go. And it might look like a lot of color right now, but I think in the long run, you'll be able to see that it really isn't. That you need it to go this dark for the next time with the little pin feathers and things. Okay, now I'm doing the same thing. I'm using my auburn, which is my lighter of the two browns. And I'm just gonna start pulling. This is with the side from the center out. We want him to be fluffy. And you can go close and far when you can. You can't always do that, but if you have the opportunity, start out, do a couple really close like this. I'm using the side of my brush again. If you have a regular number 4, you can try that. I think you'll find it works just equally well. And then I'm going in and I'm doing a little bit more. Now, there's a little fluffiness on him down here that I forgot to put in, so I'm going to do it right now. Again with the side. I want this to fluff off that way a little bit. There we go. I think that's a little cuter. And then you can press the brush and blend from the ivory or any of the spots that you think need it. Pull from the ivory. That'll help put the lighter color over the top of the other. And use the flat brush, and that will make all the difference for you. It'll smooth things, just like it would if you were doing background. You're just trying to get those little... Okay. Now I'm going to do the middle of his mouth. I'm going to take, I've got this brown on here. I'm just going to put a little bit of brown back in his throat, like right in here. Can you see that? Just so he has a little depth in there. I might even pull it in from up here. Then I'm going to clean my brush. I'm going to go get my apricot, and I'm just going to put the apricot in there too. Oh, need a little more apricot on my brush. And that gives him a little bit of a little open beak there. Then I'm going to get my number 1. I have a number 1. Oops. What did I do with my number 1? There it is. Okay. This is what my number 1 looks like. I love it. I'm going to take a little of the yellow brown this time, and I'm just going to put it around his beak. And over here. Like I said, this is the time we're adding the depth, the colors. You'll be putting in a little more depth next time using a liner for most of what you're going to be doing. So this is the macro. The next time we'll do the micro stuff. Yep. I need a little more yellow right there. Okay. Okay, and then finally, because this is his beak, I'm going to take my liner. I'm going to put a little auburn on it, and because it'll fire out and I don't want to lose where the beak ends, I'm going to put a little bit of brown up in here. This is auburn. This is the lighter brown. A little bit down here. I'm basically outlining his little beak. A little bit right here. A little bit right here. I'm going to turn it. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to do this part up here. And this part right here. Now, I'm going to show it to you. You see how under the beak it's a little dark? I'm going to go in with my number 4, and I'm going to turn it so I can wipe down, because that you always paint towards yourself. That gives you the most control. And I'm just going to gently pull that down, and maybe a little right here, and it softens it a lot. Okay? Alrighty. And then I'm going to take a little rich brown on my brush, and I'm just going to, oops. When you want to leave the feathers on top, which is what I want to do here, I want the brown feathers where I'm working on his neck now. I want the brown feathers, just the light brown feathers from the top to stay on top. I work underneath. I pull from below so that way, see how those little lighter ones stay on top? And I'm also going to give them a little bit of frou-frou right here. Couple little, there. Okay. And now while I'm in the rich brown, I'm also going to put a little under this wing. Oops, I just finished saying what to do and then I didn't do it. You pull from the bottom up like this. With the darker color, if you're putting it under something, it'll just give you a better finish. You see that? I mean, there's an obvious line there, but you get the idea. And then I want to put a little up in here too. Just right up in the top here where he is, there. Oops, I'm using the brown and I'm using the side of my brush just to get the darker brown up in there. And if you go with the darker brown under, it works a little better for you. Okay, now over here, I'm going with the lighter brown again. I'm back in my auburn, and I'm using the side of my brush. See how I'm using the side of it? And I'm going to flip off a little bit there. And I'm just going to pull the lighter feathers down. Oops, let me get a little more on my brush. And you kind of have to decide, you know, how much is too much and where you want the colors. If you need to turn it and come back this way to get a better, you're doing a little curly, a little C stroke like this. Like this. Here, I'll do it up here for you. See, you're doing that kind of a stroke. And that's going to really get you the little bird feathers, especially with this brush. This brush is perfect for that. So I'm coming up here and I'm doing the little C stroke to get the little bird feathers. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to full load with auburn, side load with rich brown, because I know what I want down here. I want these little guys to just have a little color. And if I, oops, I need a little more oil. If I full load with auburn, side load with rich brown, I get both colors applied at once, and I get a little bit of that sassiness back there. See his little sassy tail, isn't it cute? I think it's adorable. Get that color off of there. And then I think I just want a little more right in here. Okay, so he's pretty fluffy there. Now the only other part we have to do is down here, which is the base of him. I'm going to take my burnt orange now. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of auburn because I'm going to start at the base. There's going to be a little shadow here because he has the flower in front of him. So I'm going to start there. And I'm going to go right over the flower. I mean, frankly, who cares? You can wipe off the flower, right? And again, I'm doing these little comma strokes. They're kind of a backwards comma, but you get the idea. Then I'm going to clean my brush because I want to get that brown off of there. And I'm going to go into my burnt orange, holding them upside down now so that I can get these little comma strokes real easy in there. And I'm using the side of my brush. And now I'm going to turn it this way because I want to get a sense of what I'm doing to his little front there. And so I'm going to do a couple coming down now. Up. And then you see how liney they are. They're a little too much line. I'm just going to take this and I'm going to flatten it out, my brush out, and I'm going to add some color, but I'm going to add it with a flat brush. I'm going to put a little bit of yellow brown in there just to give it a little better color. Okay, so that's my little guy. And you can play with them all you want. Okay, now we're going to go into let's see, probably the flowers. By the way, if you hadn't done the eye, make sure that the eye looks right to you. And if necessary, take a little liner and go around and just make sure that these little lines around his eye are perfect. This is a good time to get it. If you get color in there, take your Pico-Pay like this and just go in there and wipe out where you got your color. Okay, so make sure that you keep the eye nice and that it's all the way you want it. And I'm just going to add a little more brown right here. It needs it. There we go. Okay, so that's my little guy. And I might take a little color off up here. I want a little less color around his eye. And you can do that if you want it. And you're just going to keep playing with it till you get it as nice and smooth as you want it. So you can play with it all you want. I'm not going to do much of that right now. I am going to take my eraser. This is my wedge eraser that I use. I'm going to use the blunt side of it, and I'm just going to go and I'm going to make this flower look like it's supposed to here. And then I'm going to wipe off what I don't need there. Okay, so I put the flower back the way it's supposed to be, right there. And I will take my color and just pull it back up into the little bird. Alrighty. Okay, for the flowers, the petals of the flowers, I would work on those last. I'm going to work on the leaves right now because you want to put the leaves in, then ultimately pull all the flowers out at the same time if they need some help. Like right here, this one's going to need to come over this way a little bit more. And you can do that. You can pull all that out. Oh, I'm going to do these now. You can use moss. I'm going to full load with chartreuse, side load with moss. And see here how this leaf doesn't go all the way back to that flower. That was my mistake. I wanted it under the flowers. So I'm going to do that right now by just adding a little darkness there. And that's going to help put it back under the flower where it belongs. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Just add a little color. You can even add a little bit of blue to it if you want, just to give it a different, see, watch here. I put a little bit of baby blue in it, and I'm just going to pull it back there. Maybe a little more right here. Right under that corner. There we go. And I'm going to lightly feather this. I see like a line forming there. I don't want that. And then I typically do kind of a little bit on the side of the flower like this. A little bit on the tip of the flower like this. Just trying to get my flowers to look nice the way I want them to. If you want to add other colors, you can. You could add a little bit of the burnt orange to it. I don't know what it would look like, but let's try it. Let's try it on this one down here. No, I don't think I like that, but it does give you a nice shadow. I probably would have gone more with a blue down in there. Of course, I'm a blueaholic, so we know that already. And this leaf, I think was supposed to come over this way more, so I'm going to do that. For some reason, it just didn't get, it just didn't get all the way over there. So I'm just going to add a little more color there. I don't like this. I'm going to pull that down a little more. And add a little more color here. You can add a little old gold green if you need to. Sometimes that just helps you with the color. And then I'm going to go over on this side and do this leaf here. I'm going to take a little old gold over here and just put it in. There we go. And a little bit on the tip. Okay. And then if you want to, you can finish out doing your little veins. And if they're too dark, take your big brush. It's always better to do it with a big brush. Go back in and lift a little of that color so you don't have so much color there. Just use the tip of your big brush. That'll help a lot. Okay. Now I'm going to use, you can either use old gold green or you can use your silver gray for just putting a little shadow in on these flowers. Remember last time we put a little, let me show you, a little wipeout right here. And so let's start with that and I'll show you what I mean by putting a little shadow in. I'm using old gold green. You can use a silver gray if you prefer it. It's personal preference. It's a little dark. Press it on your towel to get it off. There you go. And you can see it's a little augmented there. I did a little more than I normally would, but it gives you an idea of how that curves over. And then on this one here, I think we're going to have like a little, let's do this. Give it a little, you can give it a little crease in the middle by just adding your color on the sides, stopping and going across just like you would on a leaf. Oops, can you see there? Yeah. And I guess I would put a little down in here. It's very subtle. If you can see any of this, it's probably because I'm painting a little darker in some spots with it. And then I'm going to do it down here at the base too. But that gives you a little cupping effect to those flowers, and it also kind of helps you identify the edges of the flowers. And then we're just going to do this guy right here. He's the big guy in the middle. Just doing part of him. You can take and then lightly brush towards the center. And I'm going to take my number 1. Then you're going to take your old green, or you can use moss green, it's fine. And you're just going to put a couple little, and I'll show you real close here, a couple little dots down in there. That just sort of gives you a separation between the two sides of the petals, the two different petals that we have there. Oops, that's too bright. Yeah. Then I'm going to take a little bit and just kind of go around to set this center up a little. Now, this is the main flower. These others you don't have to do as much. These you can just do a little ticky down in here. My first teacher used to call everything a ticky. Down in there like that. I think I want a brighter color. And over here, you've got a little flower, you can do a little like that. Then you're going to take your yellow and go back in and re-dab the center with your yellow so that you can see it. And then I think the last thing I would do here is take my eraser. I'm going to start with the Pico-Pay because it's a little gentler. And I'm just going to start going around and defining these petals. I'm wiping them out, as you can see. I'm going to do there. I'm going to do the edge of this here. I'm going to do the edge of this up here. A little bit of this one over here. And then down here, I'm going to try to do this one too. And if that doesn't work and give you the kind of look you want, you can also go back in, get some white, my favorite, and you can just put a little white up in here. And sometimes that's really all you need in order to just add a little color. I know it sounds odd, but really the white can add to it and make it really pretty. And then I might even take a little white and just add it to the center here. Oh, get a little stronger white there. Okay, so that's my main flower. Now the other flowers, you're going to do similar things. This one over here on the side, we're going to start with the old gold, and you're going to just, this is your outer leaf here, so this is an outer leaf. I know it doesn't look like it, but you're going to take and you're going to define the top of it by going across with the old gold and then flipping it around and pulling it up a little. And that will help. You'll be able to see that leaf a little better. See how much easier you can see that leaf? And then you're going to come down this side and that'll give it a little more oomph. That's what you need there. And then we're going to do the same thing here, add a little, just so you can see it. So you can see where the leaf left off. And I'm going to define this petal up here a little better by just going around. I'll take my old color here and I'm just going to put a little in there and then pull a little up here like this. And then you can go and define it. I'll make sure you can see what I'm doing. And then again, I like my white. I'm going to put a little white on the end here. I'm going to put a little white on the end here. And maybe a little right here. I just like the white. You don't have to like the white. If you don't like it, don't do it. And then I like to do the bud. This is the bud up in here. I'm going to do it with a little bit of the burnt orange, make it just a little bit brighter. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my apricot that I have, and I'm just going to put it on this side. And then you play with it until you get it the shape you want it. If it doesn't come out the shape you want it, wipe it off, start over. You can add a little white up in here. And I think that helps. With your little leaves here, I'm using my number 1 and I'm just doing my leaves. I've got a full load of moss and a side load of the little darker green that I have, and I'm just doing my little, the little leaves that are here, like this little guy. And then I'll turn it around and do this little guy. Oh, I can't even see that. Hang on. Put a little old gold down there. Give it a little more depth. Okay. So now, gonna get my liner. I'm gonna come here and just do my, and this guy here is very delicate, so I just did him very delicately. Now this is a stem, and the stem I'm gonna play with. Watch me. You see what I'm doing? Okay, I'm taking this. The white definitely helped the flower stand. I think so. I like white. I know a lot of people are afraid of it, but I like it. And I'm just doing this. Now, I know this is not what my teacher would say I should be doing, but I'm doing them with just a liner and a short choppy stroke in the darkest color initially. And I'm going to put a little in here. Okay. I'm going to clean that off. I'm going to take my number 1. It's a little bit thicker. And I'm going to dip it in my auburn, tap it off a little bit, and I'm just going to go back in and pull some of the color off and put a little more. Here, let me get my ivory, maybe is better choice here, and get a little more color on. And then go back into my mineral spirits, and I'm actually going to wipe off a couple places where I just want to have some highlight. And that's my branch. Okay, so I've got my bird, I've got my branch, I've got my flowers. This one over here, this flower over here, I still want to add a little burnt orange up in there. Maybe a little over here, a little here. It just gives it a little zhuzh. So it helps it stand out a little bit. If you get too much, let me show you what I mean. Let's say I put a blob like that in there, okay? Take your eraser, the blunt end again, and just dab, wipe, dab, wipe, and see, it'll take it down quite a bit. That'll help you out. Make sure you sign your name. On my last piece, let me show you what I did. I signed my name right down there in the same color as my blue background. And it doesn't show up as much. It doesn't detract from the piece quite as much. And that's the reason I did it. But I'm pretty happy with that. So I think this is about as much as I'm going to do on this. The only other thing I would do, and you know me on this, is I would take my liner. Oh, this is the wrong liner. This is a shorter liner. You see, oops, can you see how short that is? Okay, I like my longer liner for this. I'm going to take my longer liner, put a little of my darker green on it, and I'm just going to go around the edges a little bit. Oh, here, I'll come in close so you can see. Just a little bit around the edges. Give you a little more definition on these leaves. You don't have to do this, but I think it really helps define them a little bit. Well, I hope that helped. That's going to be my second fire on my baby bird. And the only reason I didn't go into the background and everything, and the only reason I didn't do like all the little liner pin feathers and everything on this time, is because I really don't want to have it start blending in with what I've done. You can easily overwork something like this. Don't be afraid to add color to this. Don't be afraid to add some shading to the leaves and petals and things like that, because that really helps. So just get out those brushes and keep painting. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed the program, and I hope you'll take a minute to subscribe so that other people can learn more about China painting and we can get the word out to more people. You also can look at the links below. My paintandporcelain.com website has a lot of freebies and printables for new and experienced painters, as well as studies, supplies, and even some of my hand-painted china. So thank you again, and I'll see you next time.